Welcome to Decode Station. I'm Sarah. And I want you to picture something that, well, almost everyone listening has probably experienced at least once in their lives.
Oh, yeah, I think pretty much everybody has this exact memory.
Right. You know the feeling. You're sitting in your car, or maybe you are at one of those plastic tables in a brightly lit fast food restaurant.
Yeah, smelling the fries, for sure.
Exactly. You've just finished eating, and you are staring at this, like, greasy drink cup or a cardboard fry container. And on the side of that packaging is this tiny perforated sticker.
And you just cannot resist pulling it off.
You really can't. You get your fingernail under the edge, you pull it back, and for a split second, I mean, your heart actually races.
Because you really think this could be the one.
Yeah, you are looking for that little blue square that says boardwalk or park place. And for that fleeting moment, you genuinely believe you might be holding a piece of paper worth $1 million.
It is a powerful illusion, honestly.
It really is. Millions of us participated in this exact ritual, peeling little stickers and dreaming of sudden wealth. We trusted the process entirely. But what if that excitement was nothing more than a carefully manufactured lie?
Which is the crazy part, right? Because it felt so real to everyone.
Oh, it felt incredibly real. But what if the game was never based on luck at all, and the board was completely controlled from the shadows long before the public even ordered their food?
The sheer scale of that illusion is really what makes this entire story so captivating. I mean, people believed they were participating in a fair game of chance, completely unaware that the outcome had been predetermined by a single individual.
Today, we are pulling back the curtain on one of the most audacious frauds in corporate history. We have gathered a huge stack of sources for this deep dive, including FBI investigative notes, court transcripts, and extensive investigative journalism pieces that documented the McDonald's monopoly scam.
And the details in those documents are they're staggering.
They really are staggering. Our mission today is not just to recount a crime, though. We want to understand the actual anatomy of an inside job.
Right, we are looking at the machinery of it.
Exactly. We are going to decode how a seemingly impenetrable nationwide system was completely hijacked, how the perpetrators built a shadow economy right under the noses of federal regulators, and, well, what this massive deception reveals about the fragile nature of public trust.
So, to truly understand how this deception operated, I think we need to first establish how the McDonald's monopoly promotion was supposed to function, right? We have to look at the architecture of the baseline system.
Yeah, because this wasn't just some tiny local sweepstakes.
No, not at all. This was not some minor regional giveaway designed to move a few extra burgers on a Tuesday. This was a massive nationwide promotional campaign that ran for over a decade. And the fundamental promise made to the public was absolute randomness.
That was the whole selling point, wasn't it? Anyone could win.
Precisely. The promotion relied entirely on the concept of random distribution to maintain its legal and ethical integrity. You bought your food, and your odds of winning were dictated purely by mathematical chance.
So the entire apparatus basically relied on immense public trust in that mathematical fairness.
Yeah, without that trust, the whole thing falls apart.
It essentially functioned as a national lottery, just, masquerading as a fast food giveaway. When you think about a state lottery, you imagine heavy oversight, right? You picture government regulation, armored trucks, and highly secure facilities.
Oh, absolutely. You picture guards with heavy weapons.
Exactly. And McDonald's managed to recreate that exact level of nationwide participation and unquestioning trust, but they tied it to buying a burger and fries. The scale involved millions of players who simply assumed the Golden Arches had built an impenetrable system.
And people really did assume that.
We all did. We all believed the winning pieces were just floating out there in the wild, waiting for the universe to drop them into our laps.
The public certainly believed in that randomness. And honestly, the corporation itself desperately needed that to be the reality. I mean, McDonald's is in the business of selling food, right? They are not in the business of managing highly secure lotteries.
That makes total sense. They wouldn't have the internal infrastructure for that.
Right, exactly. So to ensure that randomness and protect the integrity of the game, the security and production were outsourced. They used a third-party company called Simon Marketing.
Okay, so Simon Marketing was basically the shield for the whole operation.
Yeah, they were explicitly contracted to be the guardians of the game. They were responsible for the highly secure printing process, the shuffling algorithms, and the blind distribution of the winning pieces to packaging plants across the entire country.
Wow, so they held all the power.
They really did. They were effectively the vault that held the keys to millions of dollars in prizes.
But let me stop you right there. because this is where the story stops making sense to me.
Oh, I know exactly where you were going with this.
Right, because if you are building a vault to hold millions of dollars, you do not just put a giant lock on the front door and call it a day. You have internal audits, you have cameras, you have multiple people watching each other.
You would certainly think so, yes.
So how does an airtight nationwide system with all of that supposed corporate oversight eventually crack wide open?
Well, the system cracks open when you look directly at the person holding the keys to that vault. The entire illusion of security shatters when you realize who was actually guarding the door.
Okay, so who was it? Who was the weak link?
We have to introduce a man named Jerome Jacobson. And it is absolutely crucial to understand that Jacobson was not some brilliant external hacker who infiltrated a complex computer network from a dark basement.
So it wasn't a high-tech breach at all.
Not even close. He did not rappel from the ceiling into a secure facility in the dead of night like a movie. He was the ultimate insider. Jerome Jacobson was the head of security for Simon Marketing.
Wait, I really need to push back on this. Are you telling me that the entire integrity of a multi-million-dollar corporate system rested on one single security head?
Yes, that is exactly what I'm telling you.
That is just wild to me. They built this supposedly impenetrable vault, but they let one guy control exactly who gets the winning tickets. We are talking about a global corporation trusting one single human being to act against his own self-interest when he is just like surrounded by millions of dollars in untraceable, easily concealed paper tickets.
You have pinpointed the exact vulnerability that caused the entire system to collapse. In the cybersecurity world, we refer to this as a single point of failure, and it was compounded by a complete lack of separation of duties.
A single point of failure. That makes perfect sense.
Right. The system was meticulously designed to protect against external threats. They had armed guards transporting the pieces, they had secure printing facilities, and they used these highly specialized tamper-evident envelopes.
So it looked incredibly secure from the outside.
Oh, the security theater was top-notch. But the system possessed zero defenses against the person writing and enforcing those very security protocols. Because Jacobson was the head of security, he had the ultimate unchecked access to the actual winning pieces.
Before they were even mixed into the general population of game pieces, right?
Exactly right. Before they ever reached the public, he had his hands on them.
So he essentially transitioned the game from a system of random mathematical chance to a fully orchestrated manual distribution. But how did he physically do it? You just mentioned tamper-evident envelopes and armed guards. He could not just, like, reach into a bin and grab a $1 million boardwalk piece while everyone was watching him.
Well, the physical mechanics of his theft are a perfect example of how a security theater often fails in the face of just basic human ingenuity.
I am so fascinated by this part. How did he bypass the guards?
Okay, so Jacobson was responsible for transporting the highest value winning pieces from the printing facility to the packaging plants. And as I said, these pieces were sealed inside highly secure, tamper-evident envelopes.
Which you would think means nobody can open them without getting caught.
Right, that is the theory. The protocol dictated that an independent auditor had to accompany him on these flights to ensure the envelopes were not opened.
Okay, so he did have someone watching him.
He did. But here's the catch. The auditor was completely blind to the actual contents of the envelopes. Their only job was to verify that the metallic seal remained intact.
Wait, so as long as the seal looked unbroken to the auditor, Jacobson could basically do whatever he wanted.
Precisely. And Jacobson, being the security director, discovered a supplier who manufactured the exact metallic anti-tamper seals used on those envelopes.
Oh, no way. He just bought his own stickers.
He secretly ordered a batch of identical seals. So during the transport flights, he would simply go to the airplane bathroom with the secure envelopes.
Just a regular, tiny airplane lavatory.
Just a standard commercial airplane bathroom. Once inside the locked bathroom, he would break the original seals, extract the $1 million winning pieces, replace them with common pieces, and then apply his own counterfeit seals.
That is absolutely unbelievable.
It is wild. He would just walk out of the bathroom, hand the supposedly secure envelopes to the auditor, and the auditor would sign off that the seals were perfectly intact.
The mechanics of that are brilliantly simple, but like incredibly devastating at the same time. He completely bypassed the entire security apparatus with a trip to the airplane lavatory and a handful of counterfeit stickers.
That is the fragile nature of the system right there.
He did not have to drill into a bank vault. He just had to slip a little piece of printed paper into his own pocket. But here's the immediate logistical problem he faces once he has the pieces, right?
Yes. Getting the pieces pieces is only half the battle.
Exactly, because you cannot just walk into a McDonald's corporate office with a dozen million-dollar winning stickers and claim them yourself. The company would immediately know their head of security was committing massive fraud.
You have identified the primary hurdle of literally any internal theft ring. Stealing the asset is only the first step. You then have to monetize that asset.
Right, he has to turn a piece of cardboard into actual cash.
Exactly. Jacobson had the winning pieces, but he needed a robust way to launder them without drawing a direct line back to himself or his employer. He obviously could not use his family members, and he could not use anyone connected to Simon Marketing.
That would be way too obvious.
Way too obvious. So, to achieve this monetization, he was forced to build a highly structured shadow network.
How exactly do you build a shadow network for fast food stickers? It's not like you can just go to a local pawn shop and sell a boardwalk piece for $1 million.
No, you definitely cannot do that.
Yeah.
He began recruiting accomplices across the United States. He started with people he knew tangentially, but eventually the network expanded to include individuals with actual ties to organized crime.
Wait, like the actual mafia was involved in a McDonald's game?
Yes, mob-connected figures became part of this. These individuals would act as fake winners, and the mechanics of the transaction were highly coordinated. Jacobson would provide an accomplice with a stolen winning piece.
Okay, so he just hands it over.
Right. The accomplice would then go through the official channels to publicly claim the $1 million prize, posing as a lucky customer. Once McDonald's issued the prize money, the fake winner would funnel a massive portion of that money back to Jacobson as a kickback.
Oh, wow. So he was getting a cut of every single win.
A huge cut. They were often paying him up to $50,000 in cash per winning piece, sometimes more depending on the prize.
It operated exactly like an illegal underground franchise. Instead of franchising out restaurants, Jacobson was basically franchising out guaranteed lottery wins.
That is a really great way to put it. He was running a syndicate.
He was acting as the CEO of a shadow corporation, orchestrating this massive fraud right under the nose of one of the world's biggest companies. And he did this for over a decade. We are talking about millions upon millions of dollars in fraudulent claims.
The sheer volume of stolen money was staggering over that time period.
But there is a massive flaw in this business model. When you expand a criminal enterprise across the entire country, you inevitably introduce human error. You have to rely on the absolute silence and competency of dozens of random people.
And that expansion is exactly the friction point that leads to extreme vulnerability. A criminal web this wide, involving millions of dollars and numerous accomplices, requires perfect operational security from every single participant.
Which is pretty much impossible with humans.
Right. The mathematical probability of maintaining silence drops precipitously with every new person you add to a conspiracy. People buy expensive cars, they brag to their neighbors, or they try to recruit their own subagents to earn finder's fees.
Whoa, so they get greedy and start making noise.
Exactly. Eventually, the noise becomes too loud to ignore.
So what was the actual catalyst that brought this entire shadow network down? I have to imagine McDonald's eventually noticed that all of their million-dollar winners were somehow connected or maybe clustered in weird geographic areas.
You would assume the corporation would catch it, but they didn't.
Really? Their internal audits didn't catch the statistical impossibility of the situation.
The catalyst for the downfall did not come from a brilliant internal corporate audit. The internal audits at Simon Marketing and McDonald's repeatedly failed to catch the geographic anomalies or the familial connections between the winners.
That is honestly shocking. So how did they get caught?
The fatal blow came from an anonymous tip directed to the FBI in the year 2000. An informant called the Bureau and provided detailed information that the most recent million-dollar winner was fraudulent.
Just a random phone call out of nowhere.
Just a tip. And they said that the entire Monopoly game had been rigged by an insider known only as Uncle Jerry.
Uncle Jerry. I really want you to put yourself in the shoes of the federal agents who received that call. That anonymous tip must have sounded completely absurd.
Oh, I'm sure it sounded like a prank call at first.
Imagine picking up the phone at the FBI field office and someone tells you that the fast food stickers everyone is frantically collecting are actually the foundation of a multi-million-dollar organized crime ring. It sounds like a paranoid conspiracy theory.
It really does sound completely unhinged.
You would think the FBI would just laugh it off and throw the notes in the trash.
It sounds deeply absurd on the surface, but federal investigators understand that massive financial fraud often hides behind the most mundane facades.
That is a very good point. They are trained to look past the surface.
Exactly. The FBI did not ignore the tip. They cross-referenced the names provided by the informant. They looked at the recent list of major prize winners, and they immediately identified massive red flags.
So the data backed up the crazy story.
It did. They saw the familial connections. They saw the geographic clustering that defied all mathematical probability. The FBI realized they were looking at a highly sophisticated, nationwide criminal enterprise.
They must have been stunned to see all those connections.
They took the allegations seriously enough to launch a massive investigation, which they dubbed Operation Final Answer.
Operation Final Answer. The name alone makes it sound like they were going after a massive drug cartel. What does a federal investigation into fast food game pieces actually look like on the ground?
What makes this particular case so compelling is the sheer magnitude and intensity of the law enforcement response. The FBI utilized investigative tactics that are normally strictly reserved for taking down heavy organized crime syndicates or dismantling international trafficking rings.
Over McDonald's monopoly pieces, that is incredible.
We are talking about deep undercover operations, extensive physical surveillance of the suspects, and most notably, the authorization of federal wiretaps to monitor the private communications between the conspirators.
I want you to really visualize that scenario for a moment. You have highly trained federal agents sitting in dimly lit surveillance vans with heavy headphones on, meticulously logging hours of encrypted phone calls.
Just listening to guys talk about French fries and stickers.
Right. Instead of tracking the movement of illegal narcotics or illegal weapons, they are frantically tracking the movement of a little blue boardwalk game piece. They are mapping out an entire criminal underworld based entirely around fast food promotional stickers.
The contrast is just amazing.
The sheer surrealism of that image is absolutely incredible to me.
The context was certainly surreal, but the financial stakes and the criminal charges were incredibly real.
Oh.
By monitoring those wiretaps, the FBI was able to meticulously map the entire architecture of the network.
So they basically just listened until the criminals explained the whole thing themselves.
Pretty much. They listened as the accomplices argued over kickback amounts, as they arranged clandestine meetings to hand over the winning pieces, and as they discussed the intricacies of laundering the prize money through real estate and shell companies.
Wow, they really built the full case just from listening in.
They did. The agents systematically connected the fake winners back to the regional recruiters, and eventually, they traced the entire intricate web directly back to the center. They identified Uncle Jerry as Jerome Jacobson, the head of security for Simon Marketing.
So they finally found the man at the center of the web. Once they had Jacobson dead to rights on the wiretaps, how did they spring the trap? Did they just, quietly arrest him at his office on a Tuesday?
No, the FBI orchestrated a meticulously timed, coordinated takedown. They actually allowed the game to run one final time under their complete surveillance to catch the perpetrators in the actual act of fraud.
Oh, that is so cinematic. They let them play the rigged game one last time.
Exactly. Once the final fake winners attempted to claim their rigged prizes, the Bureau moved in. And the takedown was incredibly sweeping. They arrested dozens of individuals across multiple states simultaneously.
A massive synchronized raid.
Right. They brought severe formal charges against the fake winners, the mid-level recruiters, the money launderers, and of course, Jerome Jacobson himself.
The moment the FBI moves in and the press releases go out, the entire illusion completely shatters for the public. Decades of manufactured trust just evaporate in a single news cycle.
The exposure of the scam was a definitive and highly public dismantling of the operation. The trial laid bare the entire mechanics of the fraud, the airplane bathroom swaps, the counterfeit seals, and the extensive shadow network of kickbacks for the entire world to analyze.
And the immediate fallout from that public exposure was absolutely catastrophic, and I am not just talking about the criminals who went to prison. The corporate brand sustained an unimaginable blow.
Oh, the PR nightmare for McDonald's was immense.
Even though McDonald's was technically the victim of this fraud and was not directly responsible for the internal rigging of the game, their reputation was dragged through the mud. The public suddenly realized that the beloved game they had enthusiastically played for years was fundamentally broken from the start.
It felt like a massive betrayal to the average consumer.
It really did. Every single time a customer bought an extra large fries, just for a slightly better chance to win, the game had already been rigged against them. The winning piece they were hoping for was already sitting in the pocket of a security director hundreds of miles away. It completely destroyed the innocence of the promotion.
And that destruction of innocence brings us to a much broader and deeply thought-provoking truth about the nature of the systems we interact with every single day.
Yeah, this goes way beyond just fast food.
It really does. This bizarre crime perfectly illustrates how the illusion of a robust global system can be entirely compromised by a single point of failure. We look at a multinational corporation, we see their massive global footprint, their billions of dollars in revenue, their huge legal teams, and we instinctively equate that massive scale with absolute security.
We just assume they know what they're doing.
Right, we assume their processes are infallible simply because they are large.
We fall for the security theater. We see the armed guards and the tamper-proof envelopes, and we stop asking critical questions about who is actually guarding the guards.
Exactly the point. In reality, every massive system, no matter how technologically advanced or highly funded, ultimately relies on human beings executing protocols.
And humans are always the unpredictable variable.
Always. In this specific case, an entire nationwide promotion generating billions of dollars in revenue and engaging millions of trusting consumers was entirely undone by the unchecked actions of one trusted insider.
It is terrifying when you put it like that.
It reveals the terrifying fragility of institutional trust. When you fail to separate duties, when you allow one person to hold the keys to the vault and manage the audit logs for that same vault, you are inviting catastrophic failure.
That is the exact thought I want you to carry with you long after this deep dive ends. Think about the hidden infrastructure of your own daily life.
It really makes you second-guess everything, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. How many massive, seemingly secure systems do you interact with every single day that rely entirely on the unchecked honesty of just one person hiding behind a curtain? The financial software that holds your entire life savings, the opaque algorithms that protect your personal medical data, the complex supply chains that deliver your basic necessities.
There are single points of failure everywhere.
We are constantly putting our unwavering faith in massive corporate vaults, completely forgetting that someone, somewhere, is quietly holding the master key in their pocket. This story was never just about a few stolen millions or some rigged fast food stickers. It was a masterclass in the absolute fragility of public trust. Stay curious, stay skeptical.